Welcome to the Emerald Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Doyle, and on this podcast I speak to different Irish athletes about their highs, their lows, biggest battles, biggest successes, and why they fell in love with their sport. In this episode I chat to the inspirational Ironman competitor Micheál Costello. Micheál chats about the challenge of his eating disorder to going on to complete multiple triathlons and represent Ireland. A remarkable journey. Here we go, Micheál Costello. Micheál, how are you? You're very welcome to the podcast.
I'm good, thanks, Chrissy. How are you doing?
All good, thanks. All good. How's the running going at the moment, Micheál, or what are you up to?
Well, I just finished a cycle, but it's an easy week for me at the moment. It was an indoor cycle, with just a little bit of effort. And I always find easy weeks the most difficult, to be honest. Probably some people are rolling their eyes at that, but I had a rest day on Monday. That's always, again, that's like, I just feel so out of sync after during a rest day. After a rest day I feel good, but during it it's a bit tough. So yeah, like I said, this week's an easy week. I've just had a relatively tough training block up to this week, and then from next week onwards, that's kind of when all my races start. So I have a race at the end of next week, so in about 10 days, but that's pretty local to me here in the UK. I live in Windsor, and it's a Windsor triathlon. So yeah, that'll be fine. And then I have a couple of races abroad, I have 2 races in Spain, then another one again in London, and then one in just outside Prague, and then it'll be the lead up to the Ironman. So training is going well. I'm in that space kind of where, and it's a good space to be in, where it's like nothing amazing is happening yet, which you don't want it to be happening this early, so that's good. But also nothing is going badly, so that's also good. I've no injuries, no illness, thank God. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, so you're building up basically to hit the peak, hopefully, when it comes around to the time that you're going to hit into the races.
Yeah, this is it.
And Micheál as well, because I asked this to a lot of people who maybe travel for events and stuff. When you're traveling for those races now, will you kind of make a few days out of it for a holiday, or do you just kind of, you're focused on what's happening, you're in and out, or what way do you make it?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, the thing with triathlon is, and especially the distance that I do, which is, the kind of long distance, half Ironman, T100 distance, is that you get such, like, you're racing, but you're also traveling, like, an Ironman cycle is 180 kilometers. You're seeing, if you went to a city, you're going to see parts of that city on that cycle that you would never see if you were just going on an actual holiday, if you know what I mean. Like, you're going to be, or you'd be cycling out into the countryside, parts that you would never see, and people will be standing on the side of the road kind of like waving and cheering you on and stuff. So that's actually lovely. And now obviously you're pushing fairly hard, and you're mentally, it's also really tough too, but you're still seeing parts of whatever country you're in that you wouldn't normally actually see. So that's really cool. And the holiday bit, it's tough. I could extend things by a day or two after, we'll say, after doing an Ironman. Like, a lot of people, I think that, I'll often get messages after I complete a race and be like, and they'll say things like, oh, you can rest now, like, have a good sleep tonight, things like that, relax tomorrow. And the thing is, when you do a race that sort of that length, I should probably clarify, just in case, that an Ironman is a 3.8k swim, a 180k cycle, and then a marathon. So when you finish a race like that, your adrenaline and your body is just sort of like, it does not know what's happening. So you're not sleeping that night. And the thing is as well, a lot of like in the marathon part and towards the end of the cycle, I and many other people would take caffeine so like you still have a lot of caffeine in your system at that point, and we're not talking just like the amount of caffeine in an espresso shot. You're talking like a lot, like maybe 3 or 4. So yeah, it's you're not sleeping that night, and then the following day it's not really relaxing because your body's still kind of recovering. But the thing is, though, I wouldn't say that, I still almost look at them, like look at traveling for these races like a holiday, because I think if you like, I really enjoy it. So like if you love it, it's like you wouldn't call it a holiday, but or you yeah, I wouldn't call it a holiday, but I also wouldn't call it, like
A chore or
work
whatever. Like,
or a chore or a challenge, or it is a challenge, but like, yeah, a chore is it would be the right way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, no, because it's just an amazing like that you get to go to all these places, but as you say, what you are actually putting your body through and the shock it's going through with how much you have to get through in the race is just unbelievable. And even the way you speak about the caffeine, it's just like it's what your body needs, and you have to kind of take it in as well.
Exactly,
Um,
yeah.
I do want to go into the triathlons more, Micheál, but I don't want to skip over the actual getting to the triathlon period for yourself either. Could you just talk to me about maybe growing up in Kerry and how you maybe got into sports, or what was it like when you were growing up, or what you were into?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ardfert, well, a little bit outside of the main village of Ardfert itself, but it's North Kerry. Bana would be our nearest beach, which is only about 5 minutes away. So I grew up relatively on the coast, which is amazing, and yeah, had a fantastic childhood. Like we were, um, like it was such an active childhood. There was me and my 3 siblings, so there was always someone to play with or more likely to fight with, and um, my mom was actually on the Kerry ladies football team, and she was also on the Irish women's basketball team. So
Wow.
like sport was a she would have got us into sport quite early on, which I'm thankful for. But it was, the traditional sports of hurling and football, and that just wasn't me. And it still isn't me. Like even I think a lot of people, they're either kind of a solo sport or a team sport type of person. And I know that's simplifying it, but I think, you are kind of, some people are just geared more towards one or the other, and I'm definitely a kind of a solo sport kind of person. I just found, and yeah, growing up, like the team sports just weren't for me, but there wasn't really much else because, it's Kerry, like obviously football is huge, and it's rural Kerry. Like it's not like there's a whole host of things to do. Like, I mean, I'd say triathlon was definitely not on anyone's radar, even my own. I did do a little bit of athletics, but again, that was more kind of the sprinting and more explosive style of athletics, which again just isn't, like, even today now when I run, people might be like, "Oh, you run quite quick." Yeah, I can run a relatively quick marathon, but if you get like, you would probably beat me in 100-meter sprint. I just don't have that kind of explosiveness in me.
Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, like so growing up, I kind of got into this headspace of that sport wasn't really for me, just because I didn't enjoy hurling and football essentially, and but I was still pretty active growing up. We grew up in the countryside, always going up and down to neighbours' houses, running around outside, trampolines, the whole lot, and then yeah, in kind of I always felt a bit sort of anxious, or as a child, like I was pretty anxious and like pretty don't really know how to put it. It's not like guilty, but sort of I felt like there was I needed to impress people in another way because I wasn't sporty enough, and I think there was a lot of pressure as well, given my mom's background, and my older brother and sister were quite good at football, hurling and football too, and yeah, like I said, given my mom's background, and also as well, I just think because as a boy as well. Like people just kind of immediate back then anyway. Hopefully it's a bit different today, but I think even still probably today there is an element of they just assume you're going to want to play, football, soccer, hurling, that kind of stuff.
Or it's like, Micheál must be good. You know what I mean? When they hear about you, right?
Yeah,
Micheál must
yeah,
be brilliant, sure. It's just,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like there would have been times where I remember maybe I was probably like 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that, and like grown men would say to me like, oh, what's wrong with you? You're Mary Costello's son. Like you should be. And I'm just kind of like, and they're actually asking you for an answer, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like you can't. That's an
what do
awful
you want
thing
me
to
to
say
say?
to a child. Like, I mean, even if one of them said it to me today, I'd be still like, what are you saying? Like, what's the answer to that? Like, so it was a funny one, yeah. But so I kind of just got more into school and academics and stuff like that, and I had a good school. I had a good school life, but the whole kind of sporting thing didn't really feature in my life until relatively recently, to be honest with you. But yeah, like I said, it was still a very active childhood.
Yeah, no, and I feel that from me when you were saying about Kerry as well, because I said this to someone before. I like GA would be my first. I played soccer and rugby, but when I thought about it and I looked around at school when I was growing up as well, it was like there was nothing else. You either did that or there was nothing else there. And social media has really poor things, but one of the things I love about social media sport wise is solo sports now are huge. There's runners, sharing their runs the whole time. Triathlon as you're doing, even the high rocks, the solos, like there's lots of different options now, and it's not just, your team sports as you say.
Yeah, definitely. Like that is I agree with you. It is definitely one of the positives of social media for sure.
Yeah, and then jumping from that then, that kind of, I suppose, that challenge and getting into maybe the running and clearing away from the team sports. How did you come about, I suppose, going from an Ironman? Because going and, running the roads, let's say, is one thing, but going and doing an Ironman, even when you were shouting out or telling me about how long each different event for it is, I don't know what to say, to be honest.
Yeah, so it is a funny one, when I do say the events or say like the distances for each of the events, because even like the concept of going from a swim straight into a cycle, straight into a run, no matter what the distance, for a lot of people, that is a challenge. And like even your body, when you go, like if you think about them, going from a swim into a cycle, like you're in completely different positions. Like when you get up out of the water at that point and you're running to your bike, like you can feel, whether you've been swimming for an hour or 10 minutes, your body is just going through all these different changes because it's suddenly impact, you're suddenly upright after being horizontal and things like that. So it is a bit of a crazy sport, but because I'm so kind of embedded in it now, I feel like everyone else I talk to is a triathlete, so we kind of normalize it. It's not until you speak to someone who hasn't done one that you're like, oh yeah, this is actually a bit bizarre. But I suppose how I ended up getting into it, like we kind of need to go back. So essentially, and I know we can delve into this a bit more, but in 2020, I was diagnosed with anorexia, atypical anorexia, it's called. And a lot of how I ended up in that place was through, I would eat very little, but also whatever I did eat, I would purge through exercise. So essentially, some people have bulimia, they will vomit up what they've eaten. My kind of way of purging was to essentially burn every calorie that was like, I was like furiously tracking calories and then making sure almost everything that I ate I burned in exercise. And that was obviously a major issue. And when I got treatment, and when I got the diagnosis, I got treatment, and then I kind of had this hangover from it where I was really fit because of all the exercise I was doing during that time and the lead up to it. But it came from a really dark place. And when, as well, like people compliment, if you're a fit person, people will compliment you on that. Or if you're a disciplined person and you go to the gym a lot or whatever, you will also get complimented on that, because it's something that people aspire to do. And like societally, we kind of place a value on it, and which is, I'm not, like, that's fantastic. But if because I had this from a darker place, I kind of almost felt like a fraud when people would compliment me on it, or I would at least feel uncomfortable, because it would almost be kind of, to me, it felt like almost complimenting an alcoholic on drinking a lot. It's kind of, it messes with your head a little bit if you're in that, when you're in that because I was trying to recover from something, but people were complimenting me on what I was trying to recover from, if you know what I mean. So it was a little bit difficult. So I was just sort of like, okay, I need to reframe my how like my fitness in my head, basically, and I need to kind of come to terms with it some way. And the logic that I went to was, whether my therapist or whatever would agree with this, probably not. So this is not advice by any stretch. But my brain went to the logic of, okay, I'll sign up to do an Ironman, and give that a go. And that was at the end of 2022, and the Ironman that I chose to do was Ironman Barcelona in October of 2023. So I roughly had like a year to 10 months to train for it, and I really didn't do much training for it. I continued going to the gym. You see, the thing with me as well is I'm a person of routine. So once I'm in a routine, I'll just stay in that routine. I could eat the same thing every day for weeks and weeks and weeks, do the same training for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's very difficult for me, unless I have someone like a coach or someone to help me break that, I won't do it. And I was already training back in the gym, like doing my own thing. And I was kind of scared to break out of that routine. So I didn't properly start training for the triathlon, for the Ironman, which is a triathlon, until probably about end of April 2023. And that gave me roughly about 6 months to train to do the Ironman. Again, it gives you enough time, but if you're doing your first Ironman, you would really realistically need about 9 months of training before going into it. And I really hadn't cycled since I was probably about 9, 10, if even that. And I knew I could run a marathon. Had never gone near that distance, but I knew I could run at least 10k. And swimming, that was another thing I hadn't done since, actually swimming, you know what I mean? I hadn't done that since probably about 10 or 12. And I remember when I first started, when I was at home for Easter, because I was living in London, and I was at home for Easter in April of that year, and I thought to myself, right, I need to get my act together and start swimming. So I went to the complex in Tralee, which is kind of like the main pool in Tralee, and I got into the pool and I swam one length of this 25-meter pool, and I was just like, how am I going to be able to do 3.8 Ks of this? This is just going to be a disaster. And also, not only that, but not in a pool environment. The pool environment is really controlled. A 3.8k in the ocean, this is just not going to happen. But I got there eventually anyway, and then that was when I also got a coach, and he helped me a good bit. Again, is someone I know they're becoming so popular, Ironmans and half Ironmans. If there's one thing that I could recommend to anyone, especially if you're doing it for the first time, you need a coach. It's not something that should be taken lightheartedly. You need to know kind of what you're doing and how to balance that training, especially a full Ironman. Yeah, and then I did it in October 2023, and that was my first one. I did it. I wanted to get 12 hours, and I did it in 11 and a half, so I was happy with that.
11 and a half hours. And me all, I have to say, when you said it, I just thought, I'm glad you're mad and you did it, right? But when you said to me, you're confident you could like run 10K, and then you said you hadn't cycled between maybe you're 10 or 12 years old, and then swimming was the same, and like, to me, like you're tackling two fronts nearly for the first time, and then there's one of them where you still probably need huge improvement. Like,
Oh yeah, 100%. Like because as well with that running 10K, like you can't you can't run a 10K at the same pace that you want to run a marathon, especially after when you're just off the bike after a 180-kilometer cycle. So you might as well call that a completely different, a new ball game too.
yeah, jeez, and that's unbelievable. And the coach then as well. So you know, when you were with the coach, then you really started preparing. Were you then like you were training towards, but were you fueling properly at that time then as well? No.
No, no. Like fueling for me has always been, because of the eating disorder, has always been a real struggle. Now, in terms of actually, I was going to say in terms of eating like 3 square meals a day, I actually wasn't at that point. At that time, I was in this routine. Like I still really wasn't. I mean, it's really difficult to say that you're recovered from an eating disorder, because like I still, how I mentioned at the beginning, like about being hating rest days. Like one of the reasons why I hate a rest day is because even still to this day, like I find I struggle to to me eating is a lot more difficult on days where I'm not exercising or I'm not training, because I feel like I don't deserve the food, and that happens even today. So that's one of the reasons why I really don't like rest days, because I kind of have to confront that sort of stuff. So back then, yeah, I wasn't fueling properly at all. Like I would, I didn't eat. Like a lot of the times at that point, the first time I would eat in a day would be at like 5 o'clock in the evening after work, and I would have done a training session that morning, and it would be going into the evening session, because there was no way that I would have been able to do the evening session without eating something. That was the only reason why I would eat, which is just like it's not one bit healthy. And as well, like even if you want to look at it from a very sort of cold performance level, like you're not getting there's no way you can get the best out of your body if that's what you're doing. And then as well in the actual sessions themselves, like for an Ironman, you would at the weekends, it's standard to you go out and you do a 3 hour cycle, a 4 hour cycle, up to a 5 hour cycle, and then a long run up to anything up to like 3 hours of a run. And you have to, like, you can have as big a meal as you want before that cycle or that run, but you have to fuel as well during it, like with gels or whatever you choose to bring. And I didn't do any of that either. And that's not me being like, oh, look at me, I did it without fueling properly. It's not a flex, it's stupid. I would not recommend that to anyone. And if you do struggle to kind of get your head around that sort of stuff, if you do think, oh God, I can't do this, then you should definitely chat to someone, because I would say that is a kind of sign you do have issues with food. It wasn't until, to be honest with you, I would say this year, when I got on top of fueling properly and wisely. So my coaching this year, I've been very grateful to have it sponsored by a company called Optimal Endurance Coaching, and my coach there, he's called Brett, and he's a former pro triathlete, and he's amazing. And the thing with being sponsored by them is that I really don't want to let them down. So like if Brett is telling me you need to have this many grams of carbs in the session, and you also need to fuel beforehand, then I'm going to do that, because otherwise, like, I'm doing them a disservice, because I do feel like I have a responsibility to them. And I know I should feel like I have a responsibility to myself and to, like, care for my body, but sometimes that's a bit too difficult with just my past experience. So I need to, I need to feel like I have that responsibility to someone externally as well as myself internally, to fuel consistently, because otherwise, even now it's still a struggle. And I also work with a fuel brand called True Fuels, and they've really helped as well. Like, I use their gels, and they're fantastic, because they're a lot about, like, they're a brand, but they're very much about kind of like educating on people on how to fuel properly for your race. And I use their gels. I've been using them in all my races since August of last year, and I find them really helpful too.
Excellent. And do you know what? I think in different areas, whether it be sport or anything else, we all need that support, and I'm just great that now you've got that support network around, just to help you on your journey, and completing your Ironmans, and kind of staying in that zone. I think that's a really good thing you have now, and it's there for you to work off and to continue with Micheál as well, which is great. And do you feel now, just asking you honestly as well, because do you feel an energy lift in yourself between after doing that? Do you kind of feel like, yes, I've kind of more energy in me
after fueling properly? Or yeah 100, like, it's night and day. I can't explain. Like, I remember it's one thing about the eating disorder, like, people, in different forms will ask me something like, if you could go back in time, would you change it, or would you go through it, or blah, like that sort of thing. And I actually would say yes. Like, I would never want to not have gone through this, because it's made me the person that I am. And that's not me kind of minimizing it. It was a horrible time, but it's really things that we would normally take for granted. It's really put them into perspective. And one of those things is actually nutrition and eating well, for me, whatever that looks like. And I remember, even this is more so to do with, I suppose, every day, but like, when I kind of got my food, my daily meals back on track, it was like as if I started to see, even like, everything was almost like in high definition. Even we'd say, like, the grass looked greener, or like it was mad. Like, I could see a bit further in the distance. It was kind of like you almost feel like you had superpowers, because but it wasn't. It was just because my body was so under fuel. Like, none of my senses were functioning properly. My brain wasn't functioning properly. All these things that you need daily just weren't functioning. And then in terms of racing, like, 100%. When I started, like, it goes for everything. Like even if it's having a gel, I could say, tomorrow morning, for example, I have a swim, and it's with a group, so I'll be getting up and going straight to the pool, and I will want to stay in bed for as long as possible. So I won't have breakfast before. I'll have breakfast when I come back, but I will have a banana and 2 energy gels before it. So I have my calories going in there. And like, just being able, the difference that those 2 gels and the banana make, to just being able to actually push the water, to make yourself feel the water better. It's the same on the bike. Like, you can just push so much more power. The running is the exact same as well. Like, you flag so much less on the run. Once you get back as well, you're not dead. Like, you can get back, you can shower, and you can just get straight into whatever it else is that you need to do for the day. Like, it's crazy. And I think as well, it's just like, a lot of people, I think, think that the fueling is, it's going to help you in the moment, which it does. Like, I mean, that is a huge part of it. But it's also it's also about not feeling that, that you can't function after the session. Your body needs to continue, and it takes a while for it to come back down from that exercising state, to like burning those calories and stuff like that. So you still need the calories even when you're just sitting at your desk or whatever. Your brain needs them and everything like that. So yeah, I would say like that, having a more informed approach to fueling has really helped. And actually, I've spoken about this before in when I was doing Ironman Barcelona for the first time back in 2023. It was crazy. Like, I kind of laugh, but like it's not actually funny. But when I got off the bike, so I had fueled appropriately to get myself through the bike, to get myself through that 180 kilometer bike. When I got off, and then was going into the marathon, I hadn't fueled that. You see, that's the thing with the bike. You get in as much fuel as you can, because it's just more difficult on the run to get in that fuel. So you almost want to, you kind of like want to front load in an Ironman. You want to front load your fuel for the marathon. And when I got off the bike, I was fine for like the first 5 to 10k, and then I started to feel a bit of a dip in my energy, and kind of feel that hunger. And I had, for some reason, just like decided I won't need to eat during the run. Like, there was still a part of me of, you're racing, but you're also exercising. So like, and you're supposed to burn calories when you're exercising, not take them on, because I had that kind of like the eating disorder kind of like
mentality.
Yeah. And so I didn't consume anything for the first, I would say probably like, it was over a half marathon. I would say probably 25 kilometers of the run. And they were, they hand out Coke and Red Bull as well and things like that. And I wouldn't touch them, because I was like, oh no, that's full fat Coke. That's not Diet Coke. I'm not drinking my calories. Again, like, just a completely ridiculous thought to have when you're, for context, when I finished that Ironman, I had burned 12,000 calories. Like, so my thinking in that moment, it just highlights how ridiculous that was. And by the time then, I realized, right, Micheál, you're not going to be able to finish this unless you get some food into you. Like, it's now about survival. I couldn't, because my stomach had already kind of like shut down at that point, and that's why you need to front load on the bike, because once you're that far into an endurance effort, it's really, really difficult for your stomach to process any kind of food. So like, the marathon was just a disaster, and it wasn't until I did an Ironman last year in August in Tallinn in Estonia, and I nailed my fueling as far as I'm concerned for that. I could have actually probably taken on maybe 10 grams of carbs more per hour in that one, to be honest. But by and large, it was, I had nailed it, and I felt so fresh on the marathon. Like, it was unbelievable. I could have when I crossed the line, I could have continued running. And it just goes to show like how important fueling is. Like, it is the difference between finishing and not finishing a race.
Micheál, that's just unbelievable. I don't even know where to come back with you to it. Like, there's just so much in that, between, I suppose, under fueling, like, to fueling. Like, you must feel like you can conquer the world now compared to what you were doing. And even mentally, you must say to yourself sometimes, I was able to get through that and complete it while it was a huge challenge with under fueling. Now I'm actually fueling, and obviously I'm still training this hard. You must feel like no matter what comes ahead of you or is put in your place, you're going to be able to do it, which is just, remarkable, really.
Yeah, and that's kind of another reason why I would often say that I don't regret having the eating disorder in this, or being diagnosed with an eating disorder, but because there is a part of me, again, and I'm really, when I say these things, I'm not trying to glamorize them at all, but it is almost like having a superpower, in the sense that, like you were saying, I know that I can get through these things. Like, first of all, there's the Ironman in Barcelona that I completely messed up my fueling at, and I still finish. Now, the time, if now I'm not saying, like, doing an Ironman in 11.5 hours is fantastic, but because of my training and time and effort that I've put into since then, if I finish an Ironman in 11.5 hours now, I will be disappointed. But it's still, like, you still finish it. So I know I can still finish it, but it's more from the eating disorder side of things, that, like, the pain of going through something like that, and you're living with that pain. It's physical and it's mental for like months, if not years. I can handle another hour or two of physical and mental pain. Like, and it is great. Like, it never fails to shock me, like, how what the human body is capable of, like, what you can, again, like, safely, but like what you can actually put your body through. In September of 2024 in Ironman Italy, I had a stress injury on my left hip. It was quite close to, like, a stress fracture, which was because basically my run sessions were far too hard, and I was training, in my running sessions were based off of ego rather than actual informed training, and that's all sorted now with my new coach. But so I ended up getting this hip injury because I'd just been using my hips too hard in running, and I was walking with a crutch like a week before the race, and I went to a physio, and I was just like, can I still do it? And they were like, well, we know that you're going to do it regardless of what we say. And I was just like, yeah, I know I will as well, but at least tell me that I'm not going to be permanently damage myself. And they were like, you should be fine, and I was just like, okay, I'll take the should and just do it. And so I did it, and I finished, and that was kind of, again, one of those moments that I was like, Jesus, like, I was limping coming out. I have videos, and I can see of my mom and my brother were there, and they were recording me coming out of the swim, and I was waving at them, and I was running up the beach, and I was limping. Like, I was like, how did I run? And then they have videos of me coming out of the second transition, so the transition from the bike to the run, and I'm running out of the kind of the banners there where it is, and again, I'm limping, and I'm like, when I watched that video, I'm like, you had a whole marathon ahead of you here, and that's how you're running. And when I crossed the line, actually, like, my whole body went into just cramped up, and I actually couldn't move. It was such a crazy feeling, and you get your medal, and it's fantastic, but then they have to move you on because everyone else behind you deserves their moment to get their medal and to get a little bit of an applause. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but I physically, it was like my brain wouldn't make the connection. I was like, I physically can't actually move. And then I started getting this pain, like this cramping feeling, but it was through my entire body. And they got a wheelchair anyway, and I couldn't sit into it because my whole body was cramped up, so they had to push me down onto the wheelchair, and then I was taken to the medical tent, and I was hooked up to salt and water as in like an IV drip for salt and water to get it just directly into my system for about half an hour. And when I was doing that, I was just sitting there, and I was like thinking, how like how have I done that? Like it's crazy what your body can do when your mind is intent on you doing something. And it's the same with the eating disorder, you know, like that's a mental illness first and foremost, and your it manifests itself so physically, but it's your brain that is making you do those things. And I just think our brains are so powerful in like in a negative sense, yeah, but like if you can turn it into a more positive sort of a power, which is not easy by any stretch, then it can be amazing.
You can do anything you want.
Yeah,
I was just thinking in my head there, Micheál, I was like, if you told me I couldn't eat before that marathon with the Barcelona you were talking about, I'd probably cry. But then I was thinking when you were talking there, I was like, if I was on a crutch a week before a triathlon, I'd probably be in tears too if you told me I had to go and do a triathlon.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it's just absolutely, it's just mad. So that's like, to me, like that's two amazing triathlons to get done, like between Italy with the hip and then like the eating then in Barcelona. There's two like how mentally strong do you have to be, you know, to get through those. And Micheál, I do have a question about triathlon because I heard this from a friend. I want to know, did you ever experience this, or is it true? In the swimming in the ocean, is it absolute chaos? I've heard of hands going on heads where, you know, you're underwater and stuff. Like, is it just crazy?
Yeah, part of the reason why I'm laughing is because I thought you were going to say, "Did you pee in your wetsuit?" Because that's what everyone says, and my answer is I always yes at the beginning and at the end. But anyway, we can have that. We can go and delve into that stuff later. But it is like it's such getting in starting the swim is like a washing machine basically. Like people get panic attacks all the time. So in my first triathlon, which was the London Triathlon, because I realized as well after booking Barcelona as my first, that would have been my first ever triathlon anyway, not to mind an Ironman. People were like, you should probably do like a shorter one just so that you know what you're getting yourself into. So I booked to do the London Triathlon, which is a short, it's Olympic distance, which is 1.5 kilometer swim, 40k cycle and a 10k run. It's called that because that's what they do in the Olympics. And the swim there, I had a panic attack in, because if you don't, I hadn't swam in the open water before it, which again was a huge mistake on my part. Your body will naturally, there's a whole science behind it. It's something called the mammalian dive complex or something like that, where basically as humans we're land animals and we're mammals. Like we're not built, well, we can swim, but you know it's not what we're built to do. And when we see like a deep body of water and we can't see the bottom of it, or we go into fight or flight, and like that's your adrenaline is pumping, and it can induce a panic because you're deprived of oxygen as well. Like your breathing has to completely change when you're in the water. And so that happens, and paired with that, you're usually wearing a wetsuit, and you have your triathlon suit on underneath it, so you have a lot of tightness on your chest. And then you have all these other people around you who are also flailing their arms, and to get started and to actually build up that initial speed in the water, you do have to kind of, you know, pull a little bit harder than you would. So it can be really, really panic inducing. And like I even had, you hear about like the top pros as well having panic attacks a lot as well in the water, because it just happens. You know, you can train all you want, but you can't out-train the fact that we're humans and that we're just not aquatic animals. And actually last year when I was representing Ireland at the European Middle Distance Championships, which is middle distance is basically half Ironman, in Pamplona in Spain, I had a panic attack in the water, and it was crazy because it wasn't even at the beginning, and that's usually where they happen. So it was in this lovely reservoir, and it was like pure blue. I actually couldn't. The swim is my worst discipline of the three. And I actually couldn't even wait to get into the water. I was like, this water looks perfect. Like, it was just like postcard blue. It was beautiful. And I couldn't wait to get swimming in it. And then I was swimming for about like 400 meters. I was like, oh, this is fine, this is fine. And then next thing, the panic sets in and you can feel it creeping up on you. And I was like, what the hell how is this happening now? Like, we're out of the craziness of the start. And once you swim about 200 meters, that because people find their own place and people end up getting a little bit spread out because you just have more room. So that doesn't really last for long. And for some reason, yeah, I just had a panic at that like 400 meter mark, and it completely ruined my race. But I still continued, but I had no power. Like, when I got onto the bike, I'd absolutely like hardly any power left in my legs, and then got onto the run, was running really slow. But yeah, it is crazy. Like, that swim start, it can ruin your race for you for sure. And like, for most people, like, I just say take it slow, and just know that people go in with the knowledge that someone might hit you. It's just another person. I have heard stories of people getting their goggles knocked off and things like that, and that's horrible, because then even if you don't panic, your race is ruined because you can't swim without your goggles.
Yeah.
But another thing that I do now is, as well, I will, to help mitigate the panic, is I pour a bottle of water down my wetsuit before the start of the race, and that essentially kind of will just loosen up your wetsuit a little bit around your chest, but it also just gives your body a chance to acclimatize to the water, because also the water is usually colder than the air temperature, so your blood flow kind of moves further to your skin than around your organs, because it wants to warm your body up. And that can also induce that panicky feeling. And if you do that before you're in the water and you're moving, it kind of mitigates it. Like, it almost sort of like balances that initial sort of rush of getting into the water. And then you just have to hope that you don't get a punch from someone, or you don't get a thing. I was once it was in Brighton. I was doing quite well, and there was this guy, I presume he was a guy, but he was on my feet, and you will get that as a lot in triathlon as well, like someone swimming right behind you on your feet, and every so often with their stroke they might touch your foot, which is I would do it a lot as well to the person in front of me. It just means that you're able, because you can save a lot of energy when you're swimming right behind someone else, because you're in their draft. And so that was fine that he was doing that. People do that all the time. But it was also like he also actually kept physically grabbing my foot. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I just kicked a little bit harder, and just like, I think I may have actually kicked him in the face. So like, the thing is just try not to get a kick, but also realize sometimes that, like, don't be doing any sort of malicious behavior, because in that moment as well, even the nicest of guys, I'm a pretty quiet guy, but like, in that sort of an environment, you will be getting a kick if you're grabbing my foot.
Like, I am going to be sarcastic here. It sounds so exciting, just between the punch, the kick, the goggles going to a panic attack. It's just like,
yeah, no, I mean, it's one of the reasons I think why we love it, and like, yeah, like, I think it's one of those other things, that just highlights how bizarre of a sport it is, but it's an amazing sport. Like, I don't know when I talk about it like this, I think to myself, why do you even do this? But like, I love it, so yeah.
And just one question that Micheál that I just answered, because I think that was unbelievable, but when you had the panic attack and you were well into this, how do you end up finishing? Is it just like a perseverance where you're just there and you have to get this done even though like you're feeling this way, or how does that work?
Yeah, again, I think it's just that, like, it's a mindset thing that a person goes into, and I think it's one of those things, if something is really important to you, then like if you have some adversity thrown your way, you will try and get through it. What I will say is, in that particular race, there was also this really lovely woman. She, a kind of one of the volunteers on the course in the kayaks. She saw that I was panicking because I had stopped. So like, it's, you know, if you see an athlete in the water and they've stopped swimming, they kind of need to come over to you to make sure everything is okay. But the thing is, in a triathlon, if you touch the kayak in any way, shape or form, that's it, your race is done. So she came over, and at that point as well, I was like, because that was the midst of the actual panic attack, I was going right over to touch to like be like, take me out of the water, because I actually thought that I was going to drown or die out there or whatever, because you're so panicked. And she was screaming at me. She's like, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it, like, you can do it. And I think her having that belief in me, even though like I have no idea who this person is, was amazing, and it really helped. And she's like, don't touch the kayak, don't touch the kayak, you'll be fine. And she then, I mean, I was swimming at a very slow pace at that point, but I continued swimming, and after my breath had calmed down a little bit, and she stayed kayaking beside me, basically, like, but at enough of a distance where I wouldn't have and that was really nice of her. So that was the swim done, and the cycle at that, when I got out onto the bike, usually at a race like that, I would be cycling maybe at like 40, averaging, because the course was quite hilly, probably averaging about 40 kilometers an hour. And I was cycling, I think my average speed at the end was about 25.5 kilometers an hour, something like that. It's like way slower. And when you're just not performing at what you've trained to perform at, it's really tough mentally. And as well, like, I had no power in my legs, I had no energy, no matter how many gels or whatever I took on. I think my adrenaline was just, my nervous system was just so shot after that panic attack, that it just wasn't able to drum up any kind of real power or strength. And when I got off the bike, what got me through that bike was, because the run is my best discipline, I was like telling myself, okay, Micheál, you have to do the run, because if you quit now, you will never know, you will always be asking yourself, oh, but what if I did a really good run and like caught myself up a few positions. So I got out into the run, and I was like, right, you can run a decent half marathon, just go for it. And I know, like, again, for me, like, I was just running at a really bad pace for me, and that I actually started crying during the run, because it was so bad. Like, and I think, and the thing is as well, like, at that point, my body was probably physically just like in doing something crazy, but I didn't really feel anything. I think because the adrenaline was kind of covering things up. And yeah, so I mean, it was a horrendous race, but it was just that sort of, I think for me anyway, I just know that if I don't do it, or if I don't complete it, I will be like, oh, but what if? Or like, the thing is, it's like when I cross the finish line at an Ironman, you're wrecked, but the following day, maybe not the following day, give it 2 days, and you're kind of like, that wasn't that bad, really, I'll do another one. And I just knew in that, when I was running in that moment, that I would be like, Micheál, in a few days' time, you're going to be like, why didn't I just try and go for it, because I feel fine now. So you kind of just really need to be able to talk to yourself, I think, in those moments. And as well, because you almost need to have voices in your head, which doesn't sound very healthy, but in the sense of, you need to be able to talk to yourself. Because as well, like, you know, in a standalone marathon, you can't have headphones on. You're not allowed that in triathlon. So it's really only you and your and the voices in your head. So you need to make sure that they're positive and that they're kind of not even positive, but giving you a good talking to. Like even tough love is sometimes the best way to be. And to be honest with you, like I didn't feel after that race, even though it was a half Ironman distance, it was the worst I ever felt after a race. I actually genuinely thought the following day I would have to go to hospital because I was I was so breathless, and I've never felt an exhaustion like it. Um, and we were actually flying home back to, I was flying back to London, and my mom was there, and she was flying back to Kerry that day. And we were walking to the train station, to the airport, and I had to stop several times on the walk. It was only like a 20-minute walk, and I had to stop to rest every 5 minutes because I was getting so breathless on the walk. And it's just crazy because like you're the person who the day before that did a half Ironman, and now you can't even walk 20 minutes to a train station. Yeah.
By the amount you go through, Micheál, though, I've no qualms with that at all. If you need to stop after what you go through, because it's just mental. You're almost talking about it as if it was like nothing. Like, you know what I mean? It's just incredible what you go through. And just when you mentioned there, because I actually had Caroline Hassett on recently, and I was saying about the music, like I would count the songs rather than, the amount of time, but obviously you don't have that option. Is when the voice are going through your head, because I know Caroline said she would count to 100 and stuff like that, is there any kind of strategy you use just to get yourself through it?
I know my situation is quite unique. Like a lot of people would have those sort of, like counting to 100 or things like that. I couldn't do that. That would just piss me off. It's amazing that it works for Caroline, but like I just couldn't do it. So what I sort of need to almost have a conversation with myself, and I just tell myself that like kind of what I mentioned earlier, Micheál, you've been through an eating disorder that nearly killed you. You can endure an hour of this. Like tomorrow, this will be over. Like this has a finishing point, and you know where that finishing point is. You just need to get to it, or I will. That's the kind of conversation that I have. Or like I had, I didn't really know her, but my mom's sister died when in 1997, I think. So I would have been, I was a baby. Like I didn't know her, but she died of anorexia, and so I will tell myself, that Auntie Eileen didn't get to do, obviously she probably would have never dreamed of doing a triathlon anyway, because she was smarter, but like as in she didn't get to continue her life, so you need to sort of do these things and experience these highs for her as well as yourself, and that will kind of keep me pushing forward. And if that's the kind of like talking to myself that I would give myself. But then if when it comes to sort of, I would also kind of spot people in front of me, like just catch up to him, try and get on this guy's feet. He's running at a decent pace, or else try and pass that guy out. Or else if there's usually, because I've been doing it for a few years now, there's often people that I will know or recognize at the same races, and if I'm beating someone who I'm glad that I'm beating, like I just said myself, Micheál, he's not far behind you. Like he's probably about 2 minutes behind you. That is going to he can quickly creep up. So like you better, like how annoyed you'll be at the finish line if you let him beat you. So there'll be that, and then and also as well with the Ironman, with those kind of longer efforts, you can kind of it's easier to break things up. So like I do this more so on the bike rather than on the run, but I will be like, okay, it's only 30 minutes until you take on your next gel, or until you have to have your next bottle finished. So that gives me something to focus on rather than the cycle. So I'm still laying down the power, but I'm like, okay, it's only 10 minutes to my next gel, it's only 5 minutes. And with the run, if they're laps, I will often be like, usually it's 4 10k laps, which makes things really easy. So it's just like you only have to do just do one more 10k, and then like, especially if it's like, the first lap is fine because you're like, oh, I'm on the run. Yes, the bike is finished. This is the last thing I have to do before I cross the finish line. So that first 10K is kind of fine. You just need to, the only thing in that 10K is that you really need to watch your pacing, because you can really let that feeling get ahead of you, and then you end up running like, you end up running like you are running a 10K and don't have another 30K after the 10K to run. And then the second one as well is fine, and then you've gotten yourself up to a half marathon, and then that's kind of when the wheels can kind of start to fall off. So that's then when I'll have that conversation with myself of, okay, Micheál, you just need to do this one lap, and then once you've done that one lap, you just have that you've one more lap to do, and then you're finished. And so it's just sort of breaking things down as well.
Yeah, so and you know what, I like that idea, even if I was doing it myself, like it's 1 out of 4 rather than the whole thing, you know what I mean? And when you get, as you said, the first one's easy, when you finish the second one you're halfway, the third is maybe the killer, and then the fourth then is, you know, the last one before you're done, you know. I think that's a great way of looking at it, yeah.
Yeah, and another thing actually that just, and I do this all the time as well, and it, I found it last year in Tallinn in August, that Ironman, which went really, really well for me, and it's something I really kind of, I used to do it at my other ones as well, but I really kind of made a focused on it in terms of like in my head. In this one is interacting with the crowd, like the amount of children and, you know, young people and adults as well, but like children sort of like sticking out their hands to give you high fives, or like holding like signs that say like high five for a power up or something like that. Like, you know, interact with them, give them a high five as you're passing. It doesn't affect your time whatsoever. Like cumulatively, if you gave out 100 high fives, like that's probably taking maybe 5 seconds off of your time. Like, you know, it's not at that distance, that's nothing. So like, and that helps you. Like every time you do that, that breaks something up. It gives you a bit of human interaction. It really does help you out.
It'd take your mind off what you're actually doing, I'd say, for a few seconds, because you might take in, I don't know who was there or how many was there, that child was nice, you know, whatever like that, you're really excited, you know, something just to keep your mind off it. Micheál, just with, to go from all your challenges, right, then to go to do the triathlon is amazing, and then I suppose the next step to actually go and be chosen for the Irish triathlon team as well. Did that come about from your great times you did? Did you get a phone call? What was that feeling like?
So I had to basically do. I had to get a certain position in a race before that, basically before a qualifying period, and I came 5th at the Hardman Waterville in South Kerry, which is, again, it's like a half Ironman distance. But it's pretty brutal because it goes through the Ring of Kerry cycle, which I don't know if you'd be familiar with, but it's a very, very hilly, long cycle down in Kerry. It's famous kind of in cycling circles, and there were hills there that I tackled, and I was like, I've never even gone near these on a bike, and to be honest, I didn't even having growing up in Kerry, I didn't even know these hills existed here. but it was tough. But yeah, I came 5th place there, and so that got me the time that I needed to qualify for the European Championships last year, and then in London at London T100. Which is a big triathlon in London. That's a 2K swim, an 80K cycle, and an 18K run. I managed to qualify for the 2026 European Championships. So I'll be doing the race that I had the panic attack last year. It's in a different location this year, but it's the same race. So that'll be my redemption for last year. So I'm glad that I qualified for it again. And there's 2 guys from Tralee as well going too, which I found out recently, which would be quite cool.
Real.
They'll be racing as well. So
for Kerry.
So good, yeah.
A real victory for Kerry. No, that's unbelievable. You know what, when I think about that, Micheál, to go do the Ironman, and start that off. And I'm glad you mentioned for your poor therapist as well that they didn't suggest it, because I think that'd be one of the worst suggestions ever. But
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
just remarkable to be able to go and do it, and then to obviously go to the Irish triathlon team is unreal. Just for interest, for anyone now who's listened, and I suppose that's crazy enough, Micheál, what would be your, I know you said about getting a coach, but what would be your top 3 tips maybe you might say to someone who might be looking to do an Ironman?
I would say that, first of all, naivety is your best friend, in the sense that if I knew going into, like, when I did my first one, and if I looked back and said, would I have booked that? I probably wouldn't, because how much work goes into training for one. So if you want to do it, just do it and then figure it out. And that's not me, like, but you also have to respect the distance. Like, it kind of, and I'm going to touch on this as well in my second point, but it kind of grinds my gears a bit these days when you see a lot on social media about like people doing an Ironman. They're like, oh, I'm doing an Ironman without training, or I did a half Ironman without training. That, I think that's actually a very dangerous thing to kind of like put out there. You have to do, people, and this isn't to scare anyone from not doing it, because accidents will always happen, whether it's in a short run or like a big long distance event. But people do die in triathlons a lot. We even in the Youghal Ironman in Cork in 2023, which is why Ironman haven't come back to Ireland since, 2 people died. So like, it's not something that you can take sort of like, oh, I'm going to do this and like it's going to be great fun. Like, it's amazing, and you will do it, and you'll do it safely, but like, you really need to respect the distance. Having said that though, if you are booking it, make sure you book it well in advance, and book it well in advance enough where you can be like, I'm going to do this and I'm just going to book it and I'll figure it out as I go along. Give yourself that time, and then that will automatically allow you to respect the distance. Second tip is, forget about what you see influencers doing on Instagram. If they would lead you to believe that you need to have a bike that costs more than your car, that you need to have like a triathlon suit that costs about £600 or £700 or euro, and a wetsuit that costs about £1,000. Like, you don't need any of that stuff to do your Ironman. When I did my Ironman, my bike, the bike that I did it on, which I still have, is or cost around about €600, something like that. Like, it's nothing special. It's like, if you have a bike at home, you can do it. You can do it on that. It's not like you don't need a top of the range bike. And I didn't do it in carbon shoes either. I had a pair of just regular runners that I did it in. Obviously, they need to be actual runners because you don't want to destroy your feet. But like, what I mean is, you don't need to be spending €300 on a pair of like Alpha Flies or something like that. To enter an Ironman is already expensive enough. You don't need to pressure yourself into spending more money. It wasn't until I had signed up for my second one, and like I knew that I was really hooked, and I knew that I could improve a lot on my times and stuff like that, that I went down the road of, okay, I'll get the expensive bike, I'll get the gear and things like that. But before that, I didn't, and I'm glad in a way that I had gotten that, because 2023, it wasn't really that popular on social media. It was kind of just before it, and if I had signed up to do my first one as that was happening, I would be freaking out, because I'd be thinking, I need to spend like 8, 9, 10 grand on a bike, and that's not money I have. So like, and it's also not a money that a lot of these influencers have, because they're getting the bikes for free. So like, it's, you just ignore all that stuff as much as you can. I know it's not easy, but also like, you can do it on like regular equipment. And then I would say, just try and enjoy it, because, and I know that's such like a cliche thing to say, but even like when I'm training these days, or like when I'm racing and stuff like that, like even we'll say like the race in Pamplona, and how I started crying on the run. in one sense, it's great. It's great that I care about something that much, and I'm so glad that I have that. But also at the same time, like, kind of need to tell yourself, come on, like, nothing is going to happen. Like, why are you crying over this? Like, get over it and just sort of get on with it. Like, nothing's, if you finish last, like, no one's going to care, you know? So, like, and you'll have training sessions. I get so frustrated. Like, most of my training sessions go well, but I get so frustrated and I can get so bogged down sometimes if a session doesn't go well. And that will be the one. Even if I have, we'd say, out of however many hours of training I do a week, if that 1 hour session was crap, that will be the one that I'll fixate on. Be like, oh, this was horrible. Like, oh, I need to, all this sort of stuff. And like, it's not, it doesn't matter. Like, just remember to enjoy it and just be like, okay, that session wasn't great, but like, we're human, so we're not going to be on top form 24/7, and just sort of move on from it. And yeah, because you don't want to lose. Just remember why you signed up for doing something like this. It's to enjoy the process and to enjoy like seeing what your body can do, and like the actual race itself, it's amazing. And like crossing the finish line of your first Ironman, like I don't think I think one of the reasons why I continue to do them is because I'm almost chasing that feeling of crossing it for the first time, but you're never going to get that again. And like, that's such an amazing feeling. But it is like the victory lap. Like, you know, once you're there, you've done all the hard work. So enjoy that, but also enjoy the process, because like, you're on your way to something amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about it all the time. Like, if you're only chasing a time or whatever like that all the time, like, and you don't enjoy the process, you're going to be let down, you know, so many times with everything you kind of do, you know. It's just like,
yeah. And like, it's good to have, I totally agree with you. And it's also good to have benchmarks in place. Like, it's good to hold yourself to a certain standard, but beating yourself up is pointless, because you're just not doing yourself any favors.
yeah. And you know what? And you say that about being human too. It's so true, because like, when you're training and then, you know, doing stuff, you're not a robot. You know, you're going to have worse ones, you're going to have better ones, and you know, it could be just like, it could be you're eating, you could be tired, it could be just so many things where you're just like,
Yeah.
not yourself from yesterday or the day before, you know.
Yeah, like, so many external factors are like, there've been times when like, if I've been out on a run or on a cycle, and for whatever reason a car has passed me and beeped at me or something like that, and I've gotten a fright, my heart rate is gone then for the rest of the session. Like, but that's not my fault. Like, there's nothing I can do about that. Like, because I got that fright, and my heart rate now has jumped up, and I can't get it back down for the rest of the session. But I'm supposed to be training within a certain heart rate zone. Like, what can I do? Like, you just have to get on with it.
Yeah, and it's all about, as you say, reflecting, having a standard, and then just, you know, improving on the next day as well. Micheál, what did I think you might have told me, but remind me, what's your next race coming up that you're looking at?
Yeah, so next races are this year, well, this season, we'll say, is actually probably the busiest season I've had with racing. So I have 8 races in total, but like, most of them, there's only a certain few that I'll be taking really seriously. So I have the Windsor Triathlon in 2 weeks, in about 10 days. That should be fine. It's local, so that'll be logistically, because logistics can often cause more stress than the race itself. So logistically, that'll be fine. Then 2 weeks after that, I have what's called the Gay Games in Valencia in Spain, and it's basically the Olympics for gay people, which should be quite fun. Apparently, it's a really big deal. I've never been to it, but a lot of LGBTQ plus Olympic athletes train, like do the events and things like that. So it would be quite cool. And that's an Olympic distance. Then 2 weeks after that, I have the European Championships in Girona. That would be that's one of the big ones for me, because I'll be representing Ireland, and that's half Ironman distance. And then a week after that, I have T100 London, which is basically, it's a 2K swim, 80K cycle, 18K run. Thankfully, it's in London, so not a lot of traveling, but I've no idea how I'm going to fare at that because I'll have just done a half Ironman 6 days before. So that'll be interesting. And then I have a half Ironman in just outside of Prague, and then the big one in Barcelona again this year. I'm going back to Barcelona to do the Ironman there at the beginning of October.
Unbelievable. Back to Barcelona again. That'll be a special feeling going back.
Yeah. I'm hoping to hit a PB, but we'll see.
See what happens. I tell you, Micheál, I'm tired just from. I'm not even going to do any of those. And I'm tired listening to. Because all I can think about is the cycle, the swimming, the run. It's just so much. But fair play to you. It's just unbelievable. Micheál, thanks very much for coming on to chat about your journey. You know what, you're just amazed in my eyes from what you went through to get the triathlon and then to keep going and just, to keep doing it all over again. I don't know how you're doing it, but fair play to you. Amazing.
I don't know either. It's stubbornness, I think. It's something, but it's whatever it is, it's working, so it's fine.
You know what, there's bad stubbornness, I think, and there's good stubbornness, so I definitely say your one is definitely the good stubbornness.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Chrissy.
No problem. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for listening to the Emerald Athlete podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to leave a review, and don't forget to check out our Instagram page, the Emerald Athlete Podcast.